In today's video, I want to share with you a few things that you need to understand if at any point as an investor you think about buying pre-foreclosures subject to the existing mortgages. And I'll explain all this in a few moments, but before I do, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. We would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure if you've already subscribed, thank you so much, that your notification bell is on as well, so that when we do drop new videos, you're the first to get notified. All right, so with that being said, let's get into why did I title this video Buying Pre-Foreclosures Subject to. Well, first and foremost, pre-foreclosures and subject to are really two niches that creative real estate investors like myself compound or combine together. These are two different niches. So the first niche is pre-foreclosures. So pre-foreclosures are certain properties that have already been in default and they're in the process of being foreclosed. Now, depending on what state you're in, that pre-foreclosure process can be long, or that pre-foreclosure process can be short. Like, I'm in the state of Georgia. So in Georgia, it is considered a non-judicial state. So every first Tuesday of every month, 12 months out the year, every first Tuesday of every month, we have foreclosure auctions. Some of them are online, and a lot of them are in person at courthouses in every county in the state of Georgia. So any first Tuesday of any month, you can go to any courthouse, and on the courthouse steps, you're probably going to see an auction, especially here in Metro Atlanta. Well, those properties that are being auctioned on the first Tuesday of every month are properties that prior to that auction date were in pre-foreclosure. They had already been in default. The homeowners stopped paying their mortgage for whatever the reasons were. They got their notices, their certified letters, and up to that moment when it auctions, that property is considered a pre-foreclosure. Okay, so that is a niche. That is a niche. This is very important for you to understand. That is a niche. That is just one of many niches in real estate that investors can consider moving into or looking into in order to invest in. Well, subject to is a niche. It is a acquisition niche, okay? It is one of the many ways you can acquire a property, whether it's a pre-foreclosure, a foreclosure, a REO, bank-owned property, or whether it's just a property that's on the market. Subject to is just one of the niche acquisition strategies that you can use. So creative real estate investors like myself, we combine both together. So we take the niche of pre-foreclosures, we take the niche of subject to acquisitions, and we bring them together, and that gives us the ability to go out into the marketplace, find people who are in pre-foreclosure, give them certain offers, and a part of our offer is for us to buy these pre-foreclosures, even though we're helping them, but we're buying these pre-foreclosures, and the way we buy them or acquire them is going to be subject to the existing mortgage. So what that means is the individual who's in pre-foreclosure, waiting for the auction date, they already have a mortgage on the property. They just defaulted on that mortgage, and now the bank is looking to foreclose so that they can get the property back and recoup some of their money. Okay, so what you're saying is, I'm going to prevent you from going to foreclosure, but while you're in the pre-foreclosure stage, and the way I'm going to prevent it is, I'm going to help you move, I'm going to give you some cash, I'm going to assist you however way I assist you. We're going to prevent the foreclosure, we're going to save your credit, but the way we're going to expedite this and make this process smooth is I'm not going to go to another bank or lender and get a loan to buy this property from you. I'm not going to go to a hard money lender. I'm not going to go to a private money lender. Sometimes we do for the cost of entry, you know, the entry cost. But we're basically saying we're not going to go to a bank or a mortgage company and get a new loan. We're just going to pay the arrears to stop the foreclosure, and we're going to take over whatever the existing mortgage is that's left on that property. So these are two niches you bring into one. Now, the main point and purpose of this video is to help you understand certain things before you buy pre-foreclosures subject to the existing mortgage. Well, the first thing that I want you to understand is your personal investment criteria, okay? I want you to understand your personal investment criteria, okay? I want you to understand that. What is your personal investment criteria? Because if you don't know what your personal investment criteria is, but you watch people like me on social media, you're binge watching videos and you think, wow, this is a low cost of entry. This is the easy gateway to get in the game, which is true, but you still need to understand what your personal investment criteria is. Because if you don't, and then you're going after pre-foreclosures and you're compounding that with another niche of subject to, you could find yourself in a lot of stressful situations because you do not understand what your personal investment criteria is. Not only that, you also need to understand what your risk tolerance is. Because I can tell you now, I've bought and I still do buy pre-foreclosure subject to. As a matter of fact, that's almost 100% of what we do in one of the divisions of our company called RP Capital Home Solutions. And I'm gonna tell you now, it's stressful, all right? Depending on the type of homeowner that you're dealing with, depending on the situations and circumstances that they have going on, it's always crazy stuff going on with these homeowners. And you're not necessarily just buying a piece of property. No, you ain't just buying no piece of property. You're buying a big old problem or a house full of problems, physical problems, mental problems, emotional problems, financial problems, and the list goes on and on. So when you do understand what your personal investment criteria is, like what type of real estate do you want to buy? What type of real estate are you comfortable with? Even though I love the idea of owning multifamily because of the economies of scale and because of a lot of the analytics and how it can explode and accelerate your wealth, I'm more familiar with residential single family properties because my wife and I have been in this business for over 2 decades. That's how we got started in real estate as a 2-person team. I was the handyman, she was the real estate agent. That turned into consulting, that morphed into us helping flippers and landlords and property management. The list goes on and on. We were in all of it, but it was mostly residential. So I'm comfortable with that because I know my way around a house. I know all the ins and outs from the underwriting, the analytics, the comping, the renovation, all of it. I'm comfortable with it. So I know what my personal investment criteria is. I know where my sweet spot is. Now, when I start niching that down in residential to pre-foreclosures, and then I start looking at my financial situation and my credit situation and how I can get funding, I compound that with subject to, and it just makes it an easy gateway for me, but I still have to look at my risk tolerance. There are some things, even with buying pre-foreclosure subject to, something that I do all the time, there's just some things that I'm still not comfortable with. You know, there's some deals that when I start putting the deal together, it could just be the way the seller is, their temperament, their attitude, things that they're saying or doing that makes me feel like, yeah, I don't want to deal with buying and holding this property for the next 10, 15 years, even though I could because of the type of person I'm dealing with. They might go behind my back and try to do some shady stuff. Like, I've seen this stuff happen. So you want to know your risk tolerance because you got to make sure, okay, if you're taking over mortgages subject to, and you've got your money and other people's money tied into these properties, let's just say hypothetically you got 10 or 15 or 20 properties that you've taken subject to that were pre-foreclosures. Well, are you able to handle and tolerate waking up every day and going to bed every night with 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 properties that are volatile, that come from these types of circumstances and situations. What is your risk tolerance? You have to be clear on that, because that's going to have a lot to do to determine if you're going to succeed in it. And then number 3, the next thing that you have to understand the financial obligation. The financial obligation. Now, I should have put an S here because there are multiple obligations. The first financial obligation that you're going to have buying pre-foreclosure subject to is the cost of entry. It's going to cost money to get into these deals, whether it's costing you money or somebody else money. It's going to cost money because pre-foreclosures are typically in foreclosure because they're behind, right? So it's going to cost you money paying arrears. You might have to give sellers some money, but even if you're not giving the seller money, it could be renovations, because a lot of times if they've given up on paying the mortgage, they may have given up on paying other bills. There may be liens. They may have already been through bankruptcy. The property is distressed. So many things that could happen, that do happen. So the first financial obligation is the cost of entry. And if you're bringing private money lenders or partners in with their money on these deals, now you have another level of stress and obligation, because it ain't just your money, it's other people's money. Well, once you do acquire the property, your next financial obligation is not only the money that's sitting in there from what it took to actually acquire the property or buy it, but now you have the existing mortgage, right? You still have the existing mortgage. So there's an existing mortgage, plus there are mortgage payments, which most of the times include taxes and insurance, but these are still financial obligations. And again, if you've got other people's money, now you've got the mortgage payment, you've got the private money lender or the hard money lender or whoever you got money from, their payment if there's a payment involved. And you have another financial obligation of making sure that you maintain and manage the property, whether you're fixing and flipping the property or buying and holding. So I just wanted to take a few moments, because I know we are seeing more and more information being put on social media about these types of strategies or compounded niches that are being put together, like pre-foreclosures and subject to. But I want to make sure you're understanding the things that need to be understood if at some point you consider getting into these types of niches. You want to understand your personal investment criteria, your buy box. What is your sweet spot? What are you comfortable with? You want to understand your risk tolerance. What can you handle? What can't you handle? Or what is it that you don't want to handle? What are the things? Because that may have a lot to do with how you deal with these things. Like a lot of the pre-foreclosures that I buy subject to are pre-foreclosures that are owned by people that I don't want to deal with for the next 10 years. A lot of them are just individuals who are going through so much. They're just iffy. I don't want to deal with them. So I automatically have in my mind that I just need to fix and flip this property. And I'm very selective about properties that I would consider holding on to and keeping long term based on my relationship and interaction with that homeowner during the pre-closing process, okay? So that changes how I underwrite them, that changes how I buy them. So because I know what my risk tolerance is, and then I know what my financial obligations are. I'm not going to go bankrupt and bankrupt other people because I'm stuck with 20 properties that, even though I'm not financially responsible for at the end of the day because it's still in the previous homeowners or the seller's name, but I still have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that their credit doesn't go to waste now that they've entrusted me with the responsibility and the obligation. So I would love to get some feedback from you to see where you are in your investment journey. If you're considering getting into niches or compounded niches like this, we have some amazing courses and workshops. We do meetups here in Atlanta on a regular basis. We have virtual meetups and workshops that we host as well. I would love to introduce you to my team and our community, many of whom are learning these principles and concepts. They're implementing them, and my team and I are helping them along the way.